What if you could see your ego for what it really is? Have you ever wondered what's holding you back from reaching your full potential? The answer might be closer than you think. In this video, we're going to explore the ego, that part of ourselves that often gets in the way of our growth and happiness. We'll dive deep into understanding what the ego is, how it affects our lives, and most importantly, how we can work with it to create positive change. Let's start by clarifying what we mean when we talk about the ego. It's not just about being self-centered or having a big head. The ego is a complex part of our psyche that plays a crucial role in how we see ourselves and interact with the world. At its core, the ego is our sense of self, the I that we think of when we consider who we are. It's the voice in our head that narrates our experiences and makes judgments about what's happening around us. Many people misunderstand the ego, thinking it's always negative or something we need to get rid of. But that's not quite right. The ego serves important functions in our lives. It helps protect us from harm, both physical and emotional. It allows us to form a sense of identity and navigate social situations. Without an ego, we'd struggle to make decisions or assert our needs. However, problems arise when the ego becomes overactive or imbalanced. An overactive ego can lead to a range of issues that affect our well-being and relationships. One of the most common signs is an excessive focus on oneself. This might show up as constantly talking about your own experiences, achievements, or problems without considering others. It can also manifest as difficulty in listening to or empathizing with other people's perspectives. Another sign of an overactive ego is a constant need to compare yourself to others. You might find yourself always sizing up how you measure against friends, colleagues, or even strangers on social media. This comparison game can lead to feelings of superiority or inferiority, neither of which is healthy for your personal growth. A third indicator is an intense need for validation from others. When the ego is running the show, you might feel a constant craving for praise, recognition, or approval. This can make you overly sensitive to criticism and prone to feeling hurt or defensive when you don't receive the validation you're seeking. Understanding these signs is the first step in gaining a deeper insight into how the ego operates in your life. It's important to remember that having an ego isn't inherently bad, it's a natural part of being human. The goal isn't to eliminate the ego, but to bring it into balance and learn to work with it effectively. Let's explore the role of the ego in our lives more deeply. As mentioned earlier, the ego acts as a protection mechanism. It helps us navigate potentially threatening situations by alerting us to danger and motivating us to take action. This can be incredibly useful in many situations, from avoiding physical harm to protecting ourselves from emotional hurt. The ego also plays a crucial role in identity formation. It helps us develop a sense of who we are, what we believe in, and what makes us unique. This aspect of the ego is particularly important during childhood and adolescence when we are figuring out our place in the world. The ego allows us to differentiate ourselves from others and form a coherent self-image. However, the ego can also create limitations in our lives. When it becomes too rigid or defensive, it can prevent us from growing and adapting to new situations. An overly strong ego might make us resistant to change, afraid of failure, or unwilling to admit mistakes. These limitations can hold us back from reaching our full potential and living a fulfilling life. One of the most important distinctions to understand is the difference between the ego and the true self. While the ego is our constructed sense of identity, the true self is our deeper, more authentic nature. The true self is often described as our essence or our soul, the part of us that exists beyond our thoughts, beliefs, and social conditioning. The ego is like a mask we wear to interact with the world. It's shaped by our experiences, culture, and the roles we play in society. The true self, on the other hand, is our core being, the part of us that remains constant regardless of external circumstances. Distinguishing between the ego and the true self can be challenging, but there are some key differences to look out for. The ego tends to be reactive, judgmental, and focused on maintaining its own importance. It's often driven by fear, insecurity, and the need for control. The true self, in contrast, is more accepting, compassionate, and at peace with what is. It's motivated by love, growth, and a sense of connection to something greater than itself. Learning to recognize when you're operating from your ego versus your true self is a powerful tool for personal growth. When you're aligned with your true self, you're likely to feel more authentic, peaceful, and fulfilled. You're less affected by external validation and more in tune with your inner wisdom and values. The ego has a significant impact on our relationships with others. Because the ego is focused on self-preservation and maintaining its own identity, it can create barriers in communication and understanding. When we're operating primarily from our ego, we might struggle to truly listen to others or see things from their perspective. We might become defensive when challenged or feel the need to prove ourselves right at all costs. These ego-driven behaviors can lead to conflicts and misunderstandings in our relationships. We might find ourselves in power struggles with loved ones, colleagues, or even strangers. The ego's need to be right or to feel superior can damage our connections with others and leave us feeling isolated. However, our relationships also provide incredible opportunities for growth and self-awareness. When we encounter difficulties in relating to others, it's often a sign that our ego is at play. By recognizing these moments, we can choose to respond differently. We can practice stepping back from our ego's reactions and approaching the situation with more openness and compassion. The ego also plays a significant role in our decision-making processes. Many of the choices we make in life are influenced by our ego's desires, fears, and need for validation. Sometimes these ego-driven decisions align with our true best interests, but often they lead us astray. For example, the ego might push us to choose a career path based on prestige or financial reward rather than our genuine passions and values. It might encourage us to stay in unhealthy relationships out of fear of being alone or to avoid taking risks that could lead to growth and fulfillment. Learning to recognize when our decisions are being driven by the ego is crucial for making choices that truly serve us. Some signs of ego-driven decisions include choosing based on what others will think rather than what feels right to you. Making choices out of fear rather than love or growth. Refusing to consider alternative viewpoints or gather more information. Rushing into decisions to prove something or to avoid feeling inadequate. By becoming more aware of how the ego influences our choices, we can start to make decisions that are more aligned with our true selves and our deepest values. To truly understand your ego, it's essential to develop techniques for observing it in action. Mindfulness practices can be incredibly helpful in this regard. By cultivating present moment awareness, you can start to notice the ego's thoughts and reactions as they arise, without getting caught up in them. One simple mindfulness exercise is to take a few minutes each day to sit quietly and observe your thoughts. Notice how your mind jumps from one idea to another, often dwelling on past events or future worries. These mental patterns are often driven by the ego's need to maintain control and protect its self-image. Self-reflection exercises can also be powerful tools for understanding your ego. Try asking yourself questions like, what situations tend to trigger strong emotional reactions in me? When do I feel the need to defend myself or prove my worth? How do I respond when my beliefs or opinions are challenged? In what ways do I compare myself to others? Journaling can be an excellent way to explore these questions and gain insights into your ego's patterns. Write freely about your thoughts, feelings, and experiences without judgment. Over time, you may start to notice recurring themes or behaviors that point to your ego's influence. As you become more aware of your ego, the next step is learning how to balance it. This doesn't mean trying to get rid of your ego entirely. Remember, it serves important functions. Instead, the goal is to cultivate a healthy sense of self that isn't overly inflated or fragile. Healthy self-esteem is different from egotism. Healthy self-esteem comes from a genuine appreciation of your worth as a human being, along with an honest assessment of your strengths and weaknesses. Egotism, on the other hand, is based on an inflated sense of self-importance and a need to feel superior to others. To cultivate a balanced ego, focus on developing humility and compassion. Humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself, it means thinking of yourself less. It's about recognizing that you're just one part of a larger whole and that everyone has value and struggles of their own. Compassion, both for yourself and others, is another key element in balancing the ego. When you can approach yourself and others with kindness and understanding, you're less likely to get caught up in ego-driven reactions. Practice self-compassion by treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a good friend. Extend that compassion to others by trying to understand their perspectives and experiences, even when they differ from your own. Understanding and working with your ego can bring numerous benefits to your life. One of the most significant is improved self-awareness. As you learn to recognize your ego's patterns and influence, you gain a clearer picture of why you think, feel, and act the way you do. This self-awareness is the foundation for personal growth and positive change. Better relationships are another major benefit of understanding your ego. When you're less driven by ego-based reactions, you're able to communicate more openly and authentically with others. You become a better listener, more empathetic, and less prone to unnecessary conflicts. This can lead to deeper, more satisfying connections with friends, family, and romantic partners. Personal growth is perhaps the most profound benefit of working with your ego. As you learn to operate less from ego and more from your true self, you open up new possibilities for growth and self-realization. You become more adaptable, more resilient in the face of challenges, and more aligned with your authentic desires and values. It's important to acknowledge that working with the ego isn't always easy. There are common challenges that many people face in this process. One of the biggest is resistance to change. The ego doesn't like to give up control, and you may find yourself struggling against ingrained habits and thought patterns. Fear can also be a significant obstacle. The ego often uses fear to keep us in our comfort zone and maintain the status quo. You might feel afraid of what will happen if you let go of familiar ego-driven behaviors. Will you still be able to protect yourself? Will you lose your sense of identity? Patience and persistence are key in overcoming these challenges. Remember that understanding and balancing your ego is a lifelong journey, not a quick fix. Be gentle with yourself as you navigate this process, celebrating small victories along the way. To help you manage your ego on a daily basis, here are some practical tips you can incorporate into your routine. Set mindfulness reminders. Use your phone or other cues in your environment to remind you to check in with yourself throughout the day. Take a moment to notice your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Practice gratitude. Regularly acknowledging the good things in your life can help shift your focus away from ego-driven concerns. Try writing down 3 things you're grateful for each day. Use perspective-shifting exercises. When you find yourself caught up in ego-driven thoughts or reactions, try to zoom out and see the bigger picture. Ask yourself how this situation will matter in a week, a month, or a year from now. Practice active listening. In conversations, focus on truly understanding the other person rather than waiting for your turn to speak or formulating your response. Challenge your assumptions. Regularly question your beliefs and opinions. Are they based on facts and personal values, or are they ego-driven? Celebrate others' successes. Instead of feeling threatened or envious when others do well, practice genuinely celebrating their achievements. Learn from criticism. When you receive criticism, try to see it as an opportunity for growth rather than a threat to your ego. Practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness, especially when you make mistakes or face setbacks. As we wrap up this exploration of the ego, it's important to consider the bigger picture. Understanding and working with your ego isn't just about personal improvement, it's about how you relate to the world around you and your place in it. When you're less driven by ego, you're more able to connect with others and contribute positively to your community. You become more open to different perspectives and ways of living. This can lead to a greater sense of unity and shared humanity, even in the face of differences. Working with your ego also opens up new possibilities for your life path. As you become less constrained by ego-driven fears and limitations, you may find yourself drawn to new experiences, relationships, or ways of expressing yourself. You might discover passions or talents that were previously hidden beneath layers of ego-based conditioning. Moreover, understanding your ego is closely connected to broader personal development and spiritual growth. Many spiritual traditions emphasize the importance of moving beyond the ego to connect with a deeper sense of self or a higher power. While this video has focused on a secular approach to working with the ego, the insights and practices we've discussed can complement and support various spiritual paths. Now that we've explored the nature of the ego, its impact on our lives, and ways to work with it, it's time for you to take the next step. Your journey of ego exploration starts now, and it begins with a simple choice to become more aware. Here are some simple first steps you can take. Start a daily mindfulness practice, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day. Keep a journal to track your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Practice catching yourself in ego-driven reactions and pausing before you respond. Engage in acts of kindness and service to others without seeking recognition. Seek out perspectives and experiences that challenge your existing beliefs. Remember, understanding and balancing your ego is a lifelong journey. There will be challenges along the way, but the rewards are immense. As you learn to operate less from ego and more from your true self, you'll likely find greater peace, authenticity, and fulfillment in your life. You have the power to shape your relationship with your ego. By bringing awareness to its patterns and influences, you can make conscious choices about how you want to think, feel, and act in the world. This awareness is the key to personal growth and a more meaningful life. So, as you go forward from this video, carry with you the understanding that your ego is just one part of who you are, not the whole story. Stay curious about yourself and others. Practice compassion and humility. And most importantly, keep exploring the depths of who you truly are beyond the ego's limited perspective. Your journey to truly understanding your ego starts now. Every moment is an opportunity to observe, learn, and grow. Embrace this adventure with an open heart and mind, and watch as new possibilities unfold in your life. You have the power to create positive change, not just for yourself, but for the world around you. So take that first step, and see where it leads you. The path to a more authentic, fulfilling life awaits.